Hello, my name is Bonnie Burke and I work for Workforce Resource. Today's webinar is titled, How to Succeed in Your Next Job. This workshop is actually a part of a series of workshops. If you complete the following 4 workshops, you will receive a certificate titled Critical Employment Skills. There are 3 points I hope you can take away from this workshop. First of all, I hope you understand the importance of productivity. Every single job, productivity is important. They may measure it differently, it may look differently. So we're going to talk about why is it so important. The second point is to discover how you can contribute to the success of an organization by focusing on a few key productivity concepts and strategies. The last point I hope you can take away from this workshop is the ability to describe your work ethics. This could be a very valuable piece also to talk about at a job interview. Success through productivity. So what is productivity? Productivity is defined by the amount of output per unit of input. Sounds kind of boring, right? Well, think of it like this. The input includes our labor. How much money per hour does the employer pay you? Input also includes their equipment and their burden rate. How much do they have to spend in electricity, rent, the cost of doing business? Time is also a number of hours or minutes it takes to produce something, a product or a service. So once again, productivity is the amount of output per unit of input. How is it measured? Remember, every employer will measure productivity differently. I worked in manufacturing for many years. It was really easy for me to measure the productivity of my employees. In fact, later on, I'll show you a tool that I used. Productivity is also measured in on-time delivery. Did the product get out the door and to the customer on time? Another measurement is first time through. Think of when you drive up at a fast food place. From the time you place the order to the time you get that order, that's the throughput time. They are measured in how fast that takes. So first time through. Another measurement is machine uptime. Even think of computers. How many times do you go to a computer, turn it on, and something isn't right? You have to stop what you're doing, troubleshoot, then call the IT folks. All of that time you are down and not able to produce. Sales is another big measurement of productivity, especially in retail. At the end of the day, how much did they sell? Pretty easy to measure, right? Some organizations, such as Workforce Resource, we actually measure how many clients do we serve, how many people do we serve. Parts per hour is another measurement of productivity. In healthcare, they measure how many patients do they see during the course of a day or a week. So as you can see, productivity is measured different in almost every different occupation. I'm going to show you an activity. In fact, I'm going to have you do this activity with me. This is called a numbers game. And so I'm going to give you some directions on how to do this game. With this, I am going to give you 1 minute to circle the numbers on this handout. So first of all, do you have this handout? And if you do, I want you to make sure you have a pen in hand, because remember, I'm going to give you only 60 seconds. So in 60 seconds, I want you to circle the numbers 1 through 60, but be honest, I want you to do them in numerical order. Okay, 1 through 60, 60 seconds. Go. How did you do? On the average, people usually get about 20 numbers, if they're being honest. Why only 20? Isn't it pretty easy? 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, I know where they are. Makes it a little bit easier. I'm going to show you a tip now. I'm going to do, I hope, a better training to help you be more productive. Remember, we're measuring your productivity. Your productivity is how many numbers did you circle. So I hope you have another blank piece of paper that looks like this. I'm going to give you the same 60 seconds to circle 1 through 60. However, this time I'm going to explain this sheet. Hopefully my explanation, my training, is going to help you be more productive. So with your pen, I want you to draw a line down the middle of your paper, all the way down the middle. The next line that I want you to draw is divide the paper in half. So you probably can see these 2 marks. Draw a line straight across. You should have 4 quadrants now, or 4 sections on your paper. So notice on your paper that all of the even numbers are on your right. By even numbers, I mean 2, 4, 6, and so forth. So all the even numbers are on the right. Now look at the left. All of the odd numbers are on the left. 1, 3, 5, and so on. So that little tip in itself should help you. But I'm going to give you one other tip. Notice in your first quadrant and the top half of your paper, I'm going to go through this exercise just a little bit with you and give you an example. So number 1 is here, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. The first 5 numbers are on the top. The next set of 5 numbers are on the bottom. Notice where number 6 is? So then the next set of 5 numbers are on the top again. So 1 through 5 is on the top, 6 through 10 is on the bottom. All of your odds are on your left, all of your evens are on your right. So take a look. I'm going to give you just a couple of minutes to study. Don't do the circles yet until I tell you. Look it over. Are you comfortable? All right, go. 60 more seconds. How did you do? Did you improve? Typically, when I give this assessment to students, they will improve sometimes up to 50%. Why was that? What made it easier for them? Well, number 1, I just gave them more time to look it over. I broke it into 4 quadrants. I showed them where the even and the odds were. However, there are some people that do worse the second time. They get stressed. They're like, I should be able to see these numbers. What's wrong? Also notice that the numbers are turned kind of kitty-wampus, and that's not normal either. So hopefully this activity showed you the importance of good directions, the ability to take the time to look things over, and along with good training, typically will help productivity. So why is productivity important? Why did I include this in this series? Well, to me, the most important reason for productivity is to meet the customer order. Well, it may be your internal customer as well as your external customer. If the business you work for depends on sales, that customer is the key to the success of your business. Without those customers, you don't get a paycheck. Remember, it's the customers who pay us. It's just our employers that handle the money. For profits is another reason for productivity. Unless you work for a company that is a not-for-profit, making money is what that business is in business to do. With the profits, that employer may be able to help increase your wage, or they may be able to give you better benefits. Remember, I have to say may. They may need that profit to invest in better equipment as well. One of the last and also very important reasons to be productive, I feel, is pride. Pride in ourselves. We feel really good about ourselves at the end of the day when we have a good day. Think back on a day when everything went wrong. You didn't meet what you were supposed to have done during the day. You may have had to stay late. You may have had to come in on the weekends. It doesn't feel good at all. So days that we are productive, typically we feel better about ourselves. I'm going to have you do next a productivity self-assessment. On this self-assessment, I want you to answer the questions. If you're currently working, think about your job now. And if you're not, think about your last job. How do these questions relate to your last job? We aren't going to take the time for you to answer the questions or fill in these 3 opportunities, yet I want you to think about that, because with your next interview, with your next job, this could be a very valuable piece of information. What are some things you can do to improve your productivity? And what are your strengths in working productively? What are some things that you can help with your productivity? Well, on that assessment, I'm sure you'll notice they talked about company rules and regulations. Do you even know what the company's rules and regulations are? If not, ask for a copy of their handbook. How about safe work habits? Well, have you been trained? Have they taught you how to safely operate this piece of equipment? Can you speak up when there's a problem? If you normally are a quiet or shy person, this might be hard for you. However, speaking up can help with productivity, but it also can help with your own personal safety. Look for opportunities to improve. Yet remember, do not take shortcuts. If you see an area where you can be more productive, talk to your supervisor. There may be a bonus in it for you. There may be some methods that they had never thought of, or there may be a reason why they're doing things the way they are, and at this point, they might not be able to implement your ideas. But I encourage you to talk to your supervisor. I have this video that I want to show you, and it's called The Science of Productivity. Really, there's a science behind all this. As you're watching this video, I want you to write down 3 things that you feel you can do to be more productive. We'll talk about the video at the end. I want to see what areas that you captured. I hope you enjoy The Science of Productivity.
In a world that seems busier by the day, productivity is on the minds of many. But instead of downloading the latest time management app or forcing yourself to stay at work for hours on end, how can we use science to crack open the potential of our minds? Is there a secret to being productive? The first thing to come to terms with is that your willpower is simply not enough. In fact, some studies suggest that willpower is an exhaustible source that can be entirely used up. This is a concept known as ego depletion. So instead of convincing yourself to simply try harder, a more methodical approach is suggested. The first step: get started. It may seem obvious, but studies have shown starting a project to be the biggest barrier to productivity. Before starting, our brain visualizes the hardest parts to come and instead tries to simulate real work by focusing on small, mindless tasks. Luckily, there's a construct of the mind known as the Zeigarnik effect, which compels humans to finish a task that they've already started. The Zeigarnik effect shows that when we don't finish a task, we experience discomfort and intrusive thoughts about it. So get started now. What about time management? Shockingly, when we look at some of the most elite musicians in the world, we find that they aren't necessarily practicing more, but instead more deliberately. This is because they spend more time focused on the hardest task and focus their energy in packets. Instead of diluting their effort over the entire day, they have periods of intense work followed by breaks. Not relying on willpower, they rely on habit and disciplined scheduling. Studies have found that the most elite violinists in the world generally follow a 90-minute work regime with a 15 to 20-minute break afterwards. Instead of trying to maintain energy throughout the entire day, breaking it down into sessions with planned relaxation is most effective. But how can you develop the discipline to follow this routine? One key component is giving yourself a deadline. Write it down, mark it in your calendar, and you'll be much more likely to complete your task. On top of this, create something called an accountability chart to document your progress. In one column, write the time span, and in the other, the activities you accomplished during this time. Similar to those on a diet who document their food intake, writing down your progress allows you to realistically evaluate your work as opposed to inaccurately assuming what you've done. Furthermore, tracking your progress helps to avoid small, mindless work. And finally, stop multitasking. While it may feel like you're accomplishing more, studies show that multitaskers are much less productive. Instead, try and make a list at night of what you want to accomplish tomorrow. This way, you hit the ground running with your action plan and avoid trying to complete multiple activities at once. While you're at it, split up your large tasks into smaller bite-sized ones. Your brain will find these less daunting and it will make the starting process easier. With a clear goal and action plan in mind, your productivity levels can soar to new heights.
Did you catch some of these points? Remember, they said, get started. Do the first step. Sometimes our brains, all we need to do is take the first step, and our brain will make us finish it. We sometimes get uncomfortable when we have projects that are out there that we haven't finished. So take the first step. Do not just work harder. Focus your energy in packets. Remember they talked about the violinist? They do not work 8 hours a day without getting up and taking a break. So if at all possible, work in 90-minute chunks of time, give or take a few minutes. But then make sure you take a break. Get up, walk away, go outside if you can, 15-minute break. Work for 90 minutes, take a break. Most employers understand the importance of this, and they oftentimes will give you a 15-minute break in the morning and a 15-minute break in the afternoon. Another tip they talked about was give yourself a deadline. Write it down, keep it visual. You have to get this project done by, give it a date. I love the idea with the accountability chart. Write down what you have to do and when you have to do it. Write down all the tasks because it feels so good to cross them off once you've completed them. Avoid the small, mindless tasks. Sometimes that can be email. If your job requires you to be on the computer, try really hard to check your email only 3 times a day. You might think, are you crazy? The days I do that, I am far more productive. Because if I'm in the middle of a project and I get interrupted with an email, it's a whole different thought process now. So I answer the email and then I have to get back into the groove again. So if possible, avoid those interruptions. You can even put your phone on mute, or you could even set up a message on your email to say, I will return emails by, and give it a certain time. Make a list. Split those big projects, those big tasks, break those up into smaller bits. It makes this overwhelming project seem manageable. So I hope that video helped, and especially helped you understand that there's a science behind all this. So at work, what are some things you feel that an employer can do to help their company be more productive? Well, remember our number activity? And if you were better the second time, chances are because of training. I gave thorough directions, I hope. So if you are struggling with, I have no idea what I'm supposed to be doing here, ask your employer. Do not hesitate to say, I apologize, I am lost, I need some extra training. Another piece that employers can do is they can help us set SMART goals. The word SMART is actually an acronym. They can help you set a goal that's specific. You have to do this project, fill in the blank for this. It has to be measurable, 50%, 100% attainable. It has to be a project that, yes, you can get done. It has to be realistic. Yes, you can do it. And testable. So SMART goals. Your employer can give you goals, and if they're realistic goals, it'll help you be more productive. Now this piece I really struggle with because I do know that there are several employers that have improved their productivity through automation in manufacturing. It's extremely expensive. However, if there is a task that 3 or 4 people need to do, if they purchase automation, robotic equipment, oftentimes that job can be more productive with less people. That doesn't mean that those people should go to the unemployment line. It just means that those people can be moved into other areas of their business that can add value. Reliable equipment. Whoa. Remember my computer scenario? Well, how about if you were a truck driver and every time you went in to start it, especially in the wintertime, it took time to start. And how about the times that it didn't start at all? How about in manufacturing? If your machine was always producing bad parts, reliable equipment from computers to vehicles to machines are expensive. However, they can help with productivity. I'm going to show you this picture, and I'm going to tell you this is a tool that I used with my employees that helped them be more productive. Remember, it was in manufacturing. So this is a pretend board. This isn't actually a picture of their board, but it's very similar to what I had them do. So every single hour, they knew how many parts they needed to produce. So in this example, it's 38 parts. So at the end of the hour, they put how many parts that they actually made, and if they did not meet their goal, it gave them an opportunity to jot down what happened. Was it material? Did they have a new person? Was it the machine? So if they met their goal, they got a green dot. If they did not meet their hourly goal, they got a red dot. I was always amazed the power of the dots. People hated getting red dots. So as a supervisor, if I walked past the department and I saw a couple of red dots, that told me right away they needed my help. So I would go into them, I would talk about what's happening, what can I do to help, and if we could get it resolved, we could turn those red dots into green dots. By the end of the day, if we did not meet their goal, and in this example, it's 304 parts, well, it may cost the company extra labor in overtime. It may mean you have to come in on a Saturday, and nobody likes doing that. So production boards were one tool that helped my employees be productive. And it was also a tool that could help them track what problems they had, what situations arose that prevented them from being productive. So, what can you do to be more productive? During your downtime, ask, what can I do? My son's a teacher, and he has some helpers in his room. And when I was telling him I was putting together the materials for this class, he said, please tell your students how important this is. He said, as a teacher, his pet peeve would be he'd give his aides a task. When they were done with the task, oftentimes they'll sit down, get out their phones, and start texting or playing a game. He said, when you are done with the task, ask, what can I do next? Employers love it. Be at your job site and ready to work at a minimum of 5 minutes before your shift starts. Be ready to work. If you were supposed to be to work at 7 o'clock, at 6:55, be at your work site. By 7 o'clock, be ready to go. You might think, really? What difference does that 5 minutes make? Well, do the math. If you have 10 employees and they're each 10 minutes late every day, and let's just say, for ease, they make $10 an hour. What does that cost that employer at the end of the week, at the end of the year? Volunteer to learn new skills or work in another area. The more you know about a company, you are a more valued employee, yet you will be more productive. Volunteer even to take some work-related classes. If you learn some new skills at one of the technical colleges, it may also help you with advancement. And I give you a few more tips here. You may have already heard me talk about time management. Well, take a class in time management, because there are so many things during a work day that can keep us from being productive. We can procrastinate, we can put off the large things, we can set goals, we can manage our interruptions. But one of the things that I see a lot in administrative offices, and I'm looking at myself as well, is minimize, and I'll call it water cooler chat. I love to talk to my coworkers about their friends, their family, or how'd the weekend go? Yet, save those chats for break time or keep them short. So look at some ways that you can manage your time more effectively. How to succeed in your next job? Well, next I want to talk briefly about work ethics. And you might be saying, what are ethics, right? Well, work ethics, it's a moral philosophy that involves defending and recommending concepts of right and wrong. Concepts of right and wrong. I think of children when I think of right and wrong, yet right and wrong is important in our jobs as well. So what does a strong work ethic mean to you? Keep in mind, this is oftentimes an interview question. So for me, a strong work ethic means being honest. If something goes wrong, if I make a mistake, talk to your supervisor. Be honest about it. Follow the rules. But first of all, you have to know, what are the rules? So make sure you know what they are and you follow them. Hardworking. Now it's really easy to say, I'm hardworking, yet a strong work ethic means you know what needs to be done and you get it done to the best of your ability. Work ethics also means dependability. Being to our jobs on time every day is dependability. So what does a strong work ethic mean to you? I want you to take this small self-assessment on strong work ethics. I'll give you about a minute to do it. Remember, there is no right way to do a wrong thing. You may not have had time to complete this assessment. So I encourage you to take this home, spend some time with it. What have you done to show you are dependable? Everyone's answers will be different, but take some time, write it out. Why is honesty the best policy? We all know the answer, but think it through. How would you put that in words? What behavior does a hardworking person demonstrate? And once again, there's no right or wrong answer to these questions, but also remember, these are also very common interview questions. How would you describe your work ethic? Take some time later on and describe your work ethic. In a recent survey done with thousands of supervisors, they were asked what were some of their top common problems, especially with new employees. Well, look at this list. It started out with personal problems. Well, personal problems that they couldn't leave at the door. All of us have personal problems. It could be with friends or family or health. Not getting along with coworkers was another common problem. You may, in that interview, be so excited about that job. During that interview, you can tell if you like your supervisor, maybe, but you don't get to interview typically with your coworkers. So sometimes not getting along with your coworkers can be a challenge. Problems with your supervisor. Like I said, maybe that interview didn't tell you everything. A failure to fit in, using illegal drugs, problems with the law, and absenteeism. Wow. Then when they were asked what was the number one reason for termination for new employees, it was typically absenteeism. So why are people late or absent for work? Look at how long this list is. You could also add, I'm sure, many different reasons to it. However, take a look at this list. Which of these are under your control? What do you think? Didn't know the schedule? Nothing to wear? Missed the bus? Overslept? Car didn't start? I want you to think about those things that are under your control and make a plan. I'm going to give you a couple examples. I overslept. The alarm didn't go off. Well, buy a second alarm. Get a backup alarm. You could use your smartphone if you have one and your traditional clock. And making sure both of them have batteries that are charged, and with the traditional clock that they have a battery backup. So set 2 alarms. Allow for needed rest. You know, if you need a full 8 hours of sleep to be productive, to get up in the morning, know what amount of sleep works best for you. This next tip is something I do anytime I travel and I'm away from home. Arrange for a wake-up call from a reliable friend or family member. If you're having a hard time getting up in the morning, that wake-up call might be just enough to say, okay, I'm up. Another tip from some of my students is put your alarm clock on the other side of the room. You have to get up to turn it off. So whatever works for you, if you have a habit of oversleeping, take a look at some of these tips. What if your schedule changes? And some jobs, that schedule can change from week to week. Well, make sure that you check that schedule every day. Can your supervisor email you the schedule? Can you just jot it down? Can you ask the supervisor to give you a copy of that schedule? Knowing that schedule is your responsibility. Typically, if you have to make a change to the schedule, your supervisor will ask you to find the replacement. I know this one is not in your control. You're sick, or if you have a child that's sick, what do? Remember, attendance is critical, especially for a new employee. So decide ahead of time what warrants calling in work sick. So if you wake up with a headache, can you typically take a couple ibuprofen and go to work? However, if you're running a high fever, that's different. Chances are then you should call in sick. If you have children, have a backup plan. If it's just a small fever, you know that they're going to be okay. Do you have a friend or family member or a neighbor that you could leave your child with? Remember, what's the difference between it's a small cold, they'll be okay, or I have to call in sick to take my child to the doctor? So, transportation problems. Sometimes this is in our control. Talk with a friend or family member, possibly as your backup plan. You know, if you have a family member that lives close and they have an extra vehicle, you can say, hey, if my car doesn't start, can I call you? Can I borrow that vehicle? This is a tip that I do anytime I travel from home. I give myself an extra 15 minutes. If it takes me an hour to drive someplace, I try to leave an hour and 15 minutes early. In the wintertime, I give myself a few extra minutes above and beyond that. Where possible, have a phone number for a taxi or a bus. I know that taxis are expensive. However, missing work is also expensive. So for that bus, that taxi, that extra friend, have a jar where you have some extra cash, where you can pay for that taxi, or you can give that friend or family member some money for giving you a ride. Transportation problems can be a real problem with our attendants. Having these backup plans can help. At work, know when to ask for help. Once again, sometimes this can be really difficult, especially if you've been working for the company 2, 3, 9 months. If you are overwhelmed, if you just honestly feel that you cannot achieve what you need to do during the course of the day, ask for help. Stop worrying about how it looks and just look at the bigger problem of pretending that it's going to be okay. And so be specific about the type of help you need. Do you need to have something taken off your plate? Do you just need additional training? So when things are overburdened, if it's more than what you can do, ask for help. I want to review a few of the main points from this presentation with you. What can you do to help you succeed in your next job? Did you have this in your notes? Understand what their productivity is. Have you been trained? Do you know when and how to ask for help? Why is being productive important? Did you write this one down? To me, it's important because you will help that company be profitable. Even if you work for a not-for-profit agency, they will have very specific things that they measure. Know what you are being measured on and know how you can achieve that. I'd like you to list 2 things you can do to be more productive. Think of your last job. What did you do to help with productivity? Each person's answer is going to be different. I know for me, one of the things that helps is I try to manage my interruptions. I try to check email 3 times a day, if at all possible. Sometimes I let those calls just go into voicemail, and so I can stay focused on what I'm doing. Remember the video, The Science of Productivity? Well, there is a science. Another thing you can do to be more productive is to take breaks. You might think, yay, I'm good at breaks. But remember, he said to work 90 minutes. Really, really focus, manage those interruptions. After 90 minutes, get up, take a break. I want you now to give me a few examples of strong work ethics. Those were some of the last points we talked about. Look at your notes. What are some examples of strong work ethics? To me, one of the most important work ethics is dependability. The ability to get up, be to work on time, and then also to work hard. Do whatever you can throughout the course of that day to be productive and to follow the company's rules and policies. I hope you've enjoyed today's presentation on productivity. I hope from your notes you have a few tips that you can refer to with your next job. Think about work ethics. Think about the importance of dependability. Thank you so much for attending this webinar, and have a great day.